This one's a little bit tricky for two reasons. First of all, the API is maybe a tiny bit awkward and confusing. Second of all, I'm 99% positive there's actually a bug in the experimental version of React that I'm using right now. And so just take all that with a grain of salt. I'll teach you what it's supposed to do. And really what you should take away from this is that this is something that the React team will give us some power to control. So let's first talk about the problem here. What if my delay is at 500 milliseconds? And so here I'm loading Pikachu. We're pretty happy about that. Then Charizard, and we get a flash of loading state right there. Isn't that what we just literally got rid of? It looks even worse if we do 450 milliseconds. Then it looks like we're taking a picture of the Pokemon. Yeah, not exactly what we're looking for. So we just got rid of the flash of loading state for fast users, people with fast connections. So if we take 100 milliseconds here, then things actually look pretty good for all of these. No flash of loading state here. But yeah, for people with slower or mediocre connections, not so great. This is, not a super experience. So this is something that the React team has considered as well. It doesn't matter if you can remove the flash of loading state for users with fast connections or for fast asynchronous things that you're doing. If you just actually end up pushing that bad experience down to later on in like the length of time that this thing is going to take. And so the ability to control how long that loading state shows, if it's going to show at all, is really important. And so here's the key takeaway, what the React team is going to expose to us with React and concurrent mode and suspense. And the idea is that in our suspense config, we are going to be able to say, hey, React, I don't want you to show this loading or a loading state for 4,000 milliseconds. So I'm going to handle that loading state myself with this is pending thing. However, if we're pending for a certain amount of time, then I want to stay pending for an additional amount of time. So I don't want to only be pending for 450 milliseconds. If I'm going to take that long, then I want to be pending for a little bit longer. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to say busy delay milliseconds. So if we're going to be pending for 300 milliseconds, which is slightly shorter than the time that we have set for our CSS transition right here. So if we're going to be pending for 300 milliseconds, then I want to be pending for at least a busy min duration milliseconds of 700. So if we're pending for 300 milliseconds, then I want to be pending for a total of at least 700 milliseconds. So with that, we actually aren't going to see the result that we really want here because of that bug that I mentioned, but the general idea behind this is just for us to control that if we're pending for a certain amount of time, then let's stay pending for at least this long, even if this thing resolves in 500 milliseconds. So in this case, we're saying, hey, if you're taking 300 milliseconds, which we are, then go ahead and take an additional 400 milliseconds, even though this actually will resolve after only an additional 200 milliseconds. So that's the idea behind the busy delay milliseconds and busy min duration milliseconds. And hopefully when React is stable, we have either a nicer API or at least a working API that we can play around with.